Think about what it would be like to live in America in 1958. The space race was going on outside in the sky. People were talking about the new Explorer 1 satellite, and everything from TVs and fridges to cars was trying to look like it was from the future. But there was a strange contradiction. Chrysler came out with its sleek, futuristic, forward-look cars, but General Motors, the giant that couldn't be beat, went a different way. They covered their cars in chrome, which made them look more like battleships than spaceships. People would later call it the error of 1958. But that one mistake made way for a huge change just a year later. So, what really went down? Why did a big company like GM get caught up in the chrome trap? And how did they get back on their feet to make some of the most famous cars of the 1950s? The 1950s were not just a great time for cars. American car makers were also in a fierce styling war during this time. In the beginning, designs were still rounded, neat, and not too busy with decorations. But as the space age sped up, cars became blank slates for wild ideas. The tail fins went up into the sky. Details looked like rockets, aeroplane wings, and even radar gear. This was also the time when names that sounded like they came from the future became great marketing tools. A car could come with a panorama windscreen, an electronic eye, an automatic headlight dimmer, a tele-touch transmission, or a buzzer that warns you when you're going too fast. These features weren't always useful, but they made drivers feel like they were going into the future. Harley Earl, the head of GM's styling department, was in charge of a lot of this. He was more than just a designer. He used styling as a weapon to make sales. Earl came up with ways that had never been used before: freehand drawing, making things out of clay, and most importantly, the 1938 Buick Yaub, the world's first concept car, were all things that got people talking. Harley Earl had complete control over GM by the middle of the 1950s. With a single nod or shake of his head, he could bring an idea to life or end a project. Every design had to go through Harley Earl, the gatekeeper, even though many talented designers like Chuck Jordan and Bill Mitchell worked on them. He influenced what Americans liked in cars, and his ideas would soon lead GM to one of the most important turning points in the history of car design. In the afternoon of 1956, Chuck Jordan, a young GM designer, decided to walk around Detroit. He was curious, so he walked over to the Chrysler plant, which is still thought of as the weakest link in the American auto industry. He looked through a chain-link fence into the test lot, expecting little or maybe even something to make fun of. He couldn't believe what he saw. These weren't the big, clunky sedans he thought they would be. Virgil Exner was in charge of making the brand new 1957 Plymouths. They were shorter, longer, and looked like they had just come from a science fiction movie. The Plymouth looked more like a spaceship than a mid-priced car because of its airy greenhouse, big bumpers, sharp dual headlights, and especially its high tail fins. More importantly, they looked a lot more expensive than they really were. Chuck hurried back to GM to tell his co-workers and Bill Mitchell, the second in command of the design department. Not long after, the team drove to Chrysler themselves, and they couldn't believe it. Exner's forward look made GM's new designs look old and heavy overnight. This shock wasn't just a matter of looks. It was a warning shot that GM could lose its place at the top if it didn't change. Jordan's discovery was a loud alarm bell because the 1958 models were already set in stone, and work was still going on the 1959 models. The competitor that had been mocked had suddenly jumped ahead in the styling war. Virgil Exner at Chrysler wanted sleek, aerodynamic, and futuristic designs, but Harley Earl had a completely different way of thinking. He thought that an expensive car had to look like it cost a lot of money. Chrome was the quickest way to show that. For Earl, chrome wasn't just for looks. It stood for power. A Cadillac with a lot of chrome would instantly look more expensive and better than other cars. Earl also said that American cars should look strong and like fortresses, as if they were rolling monuments to strength. Because of this, he often ignored thin sketches in favor of thick proportions, layered decorations, and intricate details. He thought that too much was the language of success. But this way of thinking was very strict. Earl had to approve every design, and since he thought that more chrome was better, younger designers had little chance to push for different ideas. This meant that GM was stuck on a path that was directly opposite to the new path that Chrysler had shown. By the end of the 1950s, Harley Earl's idea that more chrome meant more prestige was no longer popular with the public. People were more and more interested in cars that looked lower, lighter, and more futuristic. But by 1958, it was too late to change course. GM's lineup hit the market with big sizes, too many details, and so much chrome that it drowned out the basics of design. The 1958 Chevrolet was able to hold back a little at the entry level. The egg crate grille and dual headlights were nice touches, and the rounded back with small circular tail lights made it look cleaner and more acceptable than its corporate siblings. The 1958 Pontiac was bolder. It had a stylized rocket design on the side and 4 round tail lights that looked like jet afterburners. The idea was fun, but it was too heavy on the eyes and didn't really work. The 1958 Oldsmobile had the most clutter. 3 horizontal chrome strips cross its sides without following the lines of the body, making it look like too much. People were disappointed when they saw its vertical tail lights, which were framed in shiny metal. This gave it the nickname Chrome Mobile. The 1958 Buick Limited was the worst of all. The Fashion Air Dinner Star grille looked like a wall of chrome squares, with 15 side hash marks and tail lights that were almost hidden by layers of trim. Buick wanted to be luxurious, but instead it became the poster child for excess. The Cadillac from 1958, which had long been the standard for flashiness, also had problems. Cadillac's wandering belt line dipped and rose unpredictably, which took away from the smooth elegance that used to define the brand. Chrysler's cars from 1958 looked sleek and modern, but GM's cars looked like steel fortresses, which wasn't what buyers wanted. And that failure brings up a bigger problem: the cycle of products that GM had gotten itself into. American car companies followed a set pattern in the 1950s, cycles of 3 years. Every year, the sheet metal and trim would be replaced to make it look new, but the body shell would stay the same. This plan kept costs down and production steady, but it also tied companies down, making it hard for them to change course when public taste changed quickly. GM had just added the new X-frame to all of its full-size cars in 1958. In terms of technology, it was a big step forward. Lower floors, more stiffness, and the chance for sleeker shapes. But the bodies that were draped over it still had Harley Earl's old-fashioned ideas, which were too much chrome and heavy lines. Because of this, customers didn't notice the engineering improvement and only saw cars that looked awkward when they first came into showrooms. It was almost impossible to change the design after only 1 year. The cost was very high, the time it would take to develop was impossible, and the manufacturing system was not flexible. Even though the market changed, GM had to keep the 1958 look for at least 1 cycle. Bill Mitchell, the energetic deputy with a vision that was the opposite of Harley Earl's, knew that GM would fall behind if it kept going down the path of chrome. While Earl was away on a business trip, Mitchell told the younger designers to do something risky: make brand new suggestions for the 1959 lineup. Even though the direction had already been decided, there was a rebellion underground. Chuck Jordan and his co-workers worked on sketches and clay models with more passion than ever before. They tried out a lot of different things: stacked headlights, split grills, tail fins that went way past the back, and sweeping horizontal lines that made cars look longer and lower. Pontiac thought about making a grille that was split. Chevrolet looked into broad horizontal themes that made things feel wider, while Buick even tried out 3 fins at once. The studio was full of creative energy. This was the first time they were drawing without Earl looking over their shoulders and judging them. And the more they drew, the more clear it became. GM had to do the opposite of Chrysler to get ahead. Get rid of the extra stuff, get rid of the mess, and embrace clean, bold lines. When Harley Earl finally got back, the room was full of drawings and clay models. He walked in without saying a word and looked at them closely. The team held their breath, and then something unexpected happened. Earl didn't say no to the work, he just said, "Continue." That nod opened the floodgates of creativity. In less than 2 years, those brave studio sketches became the lineup for 1959, one of the biggest changes in GM's design history. The 1959 Chevrolet shocked the market. Its wide batwing rear spread out like big wings, and it had unique oval cat-eye tail lights. For the first time, a mass market carried such radical styling that it instantly became an icon. The 1959 Pontiac entered a new era with its split grille. Born during the silent coup and came up with the slogan, "Wide Track." This wasn't just a lot of talk. The wider stance genuinely improved handling and stability. The look and the slogan together defined Pontiac's identity for the next 2 decades. The 1959 Oldsmobile chose restraint. Its built-in headlights and simple grille showed that you could make something look modern without adding a lot of chrome. We learned a lot from the mistakes we made in 1958. The Buick of 1959 was aerodynamic. Its aggressive front end and diagonal tail fins made it stand out from the rest of the cars from the previous year. Buick showed that luxury and bold design could go hand in hand. Finally, the Cadillac from 1959, the car that defined a time. Cadillac became not only a symbol of luxury, but also a cultural icon that will live on in movies, art, and memory. It had the tallest tail fins ever put on a production car and twin bullet-shaped tail lights. The success of 1959 was more than just a return. It set a new standard for the whole American auto industry. GM went from being made fun of for its chrome battleships in 1958 to being the leader in style innovation overnight. People who wanted a more modern look rushed to showrooms, and sales figures from 1959 showed that the trend was back. More importantly, 1959 left behind a cultural legacy. The Batwing from Chevrolet is a lasting image in American culture. It can be seen on posters, in movies, and at classic car shows today. For more than 20 years, Pontiac's "Wide Track" slogan linked the brand to performance and gave it a unique identity. The 1959 Cadillac, with its high fins and bullet tail lights, became a pop culture icon that went beyond cars. Rock music, pop art, and a shared sense of nostalgia have made it famous. The effect was too big for competitors to ignore. The 1957 Chrysler was the first, but now it had to work hard to keep up. Ford also changed how it designs cars, using wider stances and lower profiles. In a way, GM's 1959 lineup set the style for American cars for the rest of the 1960s. This is probably the most ironic thing. The brilliance of 1959 would not have happened if there hadn't been a stumble in 1958. Failure sparked a new beginning, leaving behind a legacy that is still remembered today. And from that legacy, we can see how GM's story went on, not just on the highways, but also in the minds of Americans. The tale of GM in 1958 and 1959 demonstrates an enduring truth. Sometimes failure is what makes someone great. We might never have seen the famous 1959 lineup, which included Chevrolet's Batwing, Pontiac's Wide Track, and Cadillac's tall fins, if it weren't for the big chrome mobiles of 1958. Mistakes made people have to start over. That reinvention turned out to be one of the most important events in American automotive history. What about you, though? Which style do you prefer? The heavy chrome-laden look of 1958 or the bold, futuristic spirit of 1959? Please leave your comments below. Your memories and points of view add depth to this story. If you liked this video, please like it, subscribe, and ring the bell. Stay with us as we keep finding out more about the secret lives of classic American cars.